Okay, the Three Arena is going to be packed out this Saturday night for Bellator 240. Fleury is on the card. He's someone we've been following very closely in terms of his career over the last couple of years. He's back with us in studio. Good afternoon to you, Will. How are you?
Yeah, good now, yeah.
So what are we? This is, we'll be straight up here. This is Tuesday afternoon. So 1, 2, 3, 4 days out from fight day. What does 4 days out from fight day feel, and what does it look like for you?
It's kind of like that excitement, that nervous energy, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of building. But it's at that point where you have to rein it in a little bit, like where you're like, don't get too carried away yet. You know, you can think about it, you can feel it, but it's not here yet. So you just stay calm this week. You know, in a way, this week's kind of a relief because you're not doing all the contact, you're not doing all the training. You're just resting, waiting, drinking a load of water, you know, eating very little. But it's kind of, there's like this kind of nice anticipation.
Are you cranky? Are you depriving yourself of food at the moment?
No, I'd say years ago I would have been, but like now you're just used to it. And like, okay, I definitely still get irritable when I'm hungry sometimes, but you do get better at knowing I'm going to be like, don't react to that. Like, you know, if you're stuck in traffic, just take a deep breath, like, and you know.
If a journalist asks you, are you cranky, keep calm. Don't box your head off. What are you doing at the moment? How severe a weight management process is this week?
It's a little bit easier than last time. So this time I'm coming into it with about 7 kilos to lose. And the last time it was roughly 11 kilos.
Okay.
So that was huge.
Yeah.
That was a way bigger cut, and I don't think I'll do that again. Like, I made the weight, but it's horrible.
Extra.ie had a video up of your last weight cut. It looked tough, in fairness. Although you seem to have almost trained yourself into a mindset of, right, this is how my mind is going to feel, therefore I have the tools to equip myself with it. Yeah.
So, you know you're going to be uncomfortable. You know, get used to being uncomfortable and embrace that, like, not embrace, but like, you've signed up to do this, so accept that feeling. I came into that fight heavier deliberately. I chose to do that because I thought, oh, a bit more muscle mass on me now, I'll be able to control those wrestling situations. Norbert was a very good wrestler. But like, you know you're going to have to sacrifice those couple of hours of being extremely uncomfortable for that weight. So I made that choice, and it's just like, right, you made this choice, do it now.
Well, was that the wrong decision? Was that a contributing factor in the result of the fight?
Look, you can look at it a lot of different ways, but like, maybe it made my footwork a little bit slower. I think the main thing in that fight, though, was getting caught with the huge shot early enough in the fight and then never really fully recovering. Like,
for people who didn't see it, what happened? How big a shot? How early was it?
About 4 or 5 minutes into it, or like kind of a minute and a half to go in the first round, threw a lazy leg kick, very similar to the shot that landed on me in Rome, and just kind of cleaned me out, like shot straight in for a takedown afterwards. But never really fully got. And then a couple of times at the very end of the first round, got caught very heavily again. Same shot consistently, kind of a fake takedown into an overhand. And I think I probably gave a little bit too much respect to his wrestling and the fact that, like, I was constantly expecting a takedown and it was constantly the overhand coming. Okay. And I fell for it, 10, 12 times. Like,
and are you rattled after taking a big shot like that, or is it more a sort of mental thing that's creeping in, right, I might not have it all my own way during this fight?
No, you're just rattled. Like, you're like, the best analogy I've heard is it's like you're underwater in a swimming pool and you can see what's happening. Like, you have the goggles on, you know what's going to happen, but you can't react to it fast enough. Like, you know, you're moving through something to get there. So even like midway through the second round, your brain's still working fine, you're conscious, but like, I'm knowing that overhand is coming and I'm wondering, like, what can I do to react fast enough sometimes? Like, and it was very strange. It was a really horrible feeling to be in there and like kind of go, oh, great, what am I going to be able to do about this?
How did it differ to the defeat in Rome in terms of how you responded to it?
It was like afterwards, this was more devastating, to be honest, because Rome was just like you got caught with a shot.
Okay.
Now it was the same shot, which is really frustrating in a way, but it's also like, this time you kind of have to acknowledge the fact that, like, right, you really, really need to do something about that. Now I was lucky in the fact that, like, I have pretty good people around me who, it was a much more comprehensive defeat because, like, anybody can get clipped with a shot. We're big men, small gloves, you know, it's easy enough for that to happen. Obviously you're gutted when it does happen, but at the same time, you don't see it as any big systematic problem. Like, I still thought, like, you know, I still think I'm a fucking very good fighter, but like, it is a thing of, you're going to have to go back and address something here. So a couple of days after the fight, John called me in and was like, okay, let's break this down. Let's look at what happened here. And he was like, you were dominating on top. You never got out wrestled. This guy's supposed to be an absolutely world-class wrestler. I watch you in training every day. I think your ground game's very good. I think your game overall is very good. But I see you getting caught with overhands. 2 fights you've lost have been overhands. You know, some of my spars, I've been caught with 1 or 2 overhands. He's like, this is clearly an issue. So, you know, had a couple of months to go and address that, and now I get to go and put it to the test against Justin Moore.
How confident are you in that? We won't go into any secrets that John has told you, I guess, in terms of combating that overhand. But do you feel that after taking on board his advice and putting that into practice and training, that you're now a much better equipped fighter to deal with that? Yeah,
and again, like, you know, it's that ability to change something. And thankfully it was something quite small. So, you know, you go away, you look at what exactly is happening in those situations, and you're kind of like, well, is this, you know, something I can't address? And of course it is, like, you know, I'm a tall guy, I'm susceptible enough to those overhands, but at the same time, like, just by nature of my build, you know, that angle, and kind of most of the guys I'm going to be fighting are smaller than me and they're coming over the top. You're going to be a little bit more open to it. So is that just a case of get your foot, like, move out of the way more, like, you know, stay moving the opposite direction a little bit more, you know, stay out of that kind of line. And then it's so easy, like, that's a very easy adjustment to make once you can see yourself making it, if you know what I mean. We've heard from so many different fighters about how good John Kavanagh is as a coach and in terms of teaching you that. How good is he in terms of identifying that then for you? Because I'm sure any person would be able to identify what the issue is between the 2 defeats, but could he actually break down exactly why that was happening and exactly where you were open? Not to that degree, to be honest. It's more something we observe, like, look, I wish I'd known that could be a potential issue going into that fight. And maybe I should have, but it's more we broke it down afterwards. You know, you saw the problem and you addressed the problem. Yeah, well, that's all part of the process, I guess. You're going into this weekend. Justin Moore is your opponent. Who's Justin Moore? How good is he? He's a decent fighter, very strong guy. Like, he calls himself Justin the Gorilla Moore, and he's basically a human gorilla. Like, he's very big, very, like, powerful guy for, you know, he's extremely strong, but not for that long. So, like, he's got a good 4 or 5 minutes in him, and he's going to come hard for those 4 or 5 minutes. And it's what you can do to weather that storm, and then how you're going to put it on him afterwards. Like, it's a good test of how good a martial artist you are, is how I see this fight. He's not a world beater. He's not, like, somebody who's going to throw things at you haven't seen before, but he's going to come hard and fast. And what do you have to deal with that? How do your styles match up? So, like, look, I'm a kind of an overall fighter. Like, I've knocked a lot of guys out. I've submitted a lot of guys. I feel like I can dictate where this fight goes, whereas he's somebody who's going to have to close the distance. So, like, range suits me in this fight. So patience would, I'd imagine, be quite important for you in this. Yeah, but he's going to come and try and close distance quickly. So it's on me to keep the ability to be, like, if I can't make that space, you don't have the option of patience. Of course. So it's on me then to have the footwork to be able to do that. You're looking at the entire card over the course of the weekend, and you in particular are saying that this undercard, this weekend, is something we're getting in early for. There's a selection of brilliant fights that you can't really tell which way they're going to go. Yeah, this is the thing, as in, like, I think there's been a lot of focus on the main card, and, you know, it's kind of Lee McCourt main event, and people are questioning that. But actually, I think there's been a massive lack of appreciation for the fact that this is an unbelievable undercard. Like, you know, you have Phil Mulpeter fighting a guy, Daniel Crawford, from England. Like, Phil is one of the old school guys, you know, he's his own place down Port Harlington now, SBG Port Harlington. And, like, a really, really quality fighter, a guy I've trained with a lot over the years, and, like, unbelievable, phenomenal athlete, like. And this guy Crawford, he's top prospect as well. He fought Pedro Carvalho, who's now fighting for the featherweight title in a couple of weeks. And, like, I think that was his first loss in about 3 or 4 years. He was really highly touted prospect coming up before that. And I think this is his comeback fight after that. So, really interesting dynamic there. Franz Malambo is fighting Ricky Bandejas. I think that might have been moved to the main card now. That's a great fight, though. As in, Franz, he's on an undefeated, he's on, like, 4 or 5 fight win streak against really high-level opponents. Ricky Bandejas is a guy who beat James. There's kind of an interesting angle there as well. Franz, quality fighter, he's an amateur world champion. So, like, there's a lot of really quality fights, like,
Yeah.
I just don't think the quality, like, people are focusing on main card and they're not seeing the level of talent that's on the prelims and the level of talent even that, like, is coming up out of this generation of Irish fighters.
Do you see yourself on a good path after maybe another couple of wins of getting that graduation onto the main cards consistently?
Well, I was on the main card for my last fight, like, and I think, you know, in general, like, I'm considered, you know, one of the higher level Irish fighters. That's not something I'm necessarily that happy with, if you know what I mean. Like, ultimately, my personal goals are a hell of a lot bigger than that. So it's on me now to get out there and show that, you know, and address that.
Do you ever find a barrier within the organisation to achieving that?
No, not necessarily. It's you. Look, if you show up and smash the guy in front of you every time, there isn't going to be an issue. I failed at that. That's been my issue. Like, you know, I went to Rome and I lost that fight. I went out in Dublin and I lost that fight. Like, and it's on me to make those adjustments. Like,
one of the last things I wanted to ask you about is what flag are you going to carry this weekend? It's either usually a Tipperary flag or an Irish flag. Either way, you're showing some sense of pride in your county or a degree of nationalism. Time together. Is that what you did last time?
Yeah. The two flags just bundled together. I'm actually going to try and get them stitched together in the next couple of days. So it's unbreakable. You can't really tear the two apart.
Does that nationalistic streak within you actually motivate you going into a fight, especially in front of a home crowd in Dublin?
There is a little bit of that, yeah. Especially this time last year. You know, I was talking about kind of listening to all the Rebel tunes, walking down past the GPO and all that. And that was really real. And it stirs something up in you. But, like, again, ultimately it's going to be you. Like, you're fighting for what you see as important to you. You know, if other people want to invest in that and you want to see it as your country or whatever, great. But, like, I fight for my own goals and I fight for, like, the person I see myself as. So, yeah, okay, I can look at it as I'm fighting for Ireland. But ultimately, a lot of people in Ireland don't care. But I care about me and I care about what I see myself as representing. So I buy into it that way, like.
There's also the representation of, if you take away the nationalism aspect of it, there is pride in your own place of coming up in the next generation of mixed martial artists. We've obviously had some very famous nights in the 3 Arena in MMA. This is, again, a new strand of Irish fighters, I think it's fair to say. A lot of them on show on Saturday night, and there is an Irish MMA pride to be had rather than just a pride in Ireland, I guess, in terms of the fighters this Saturday.
Yeah, like, I think this second generation of Irish fighters kind of really hasn't gotten the same respect.
Why?
As the first. I don't know, maybe because of, like, people are starting to see fighting as a bit more of a pantomime type of thing, or it's very real when you're in there, but it's a very strange sport. The fact that there is this element of, like, it's show until it's not show. And people see a lot of the show stuff and they kind of go, you know, they're only kind of giving each other a bit of guff at the press conference and all this. But it's very real once you're in there. Like, look, the devastation I felt after the last fight, like, you know, or even the physical damage after the last fight, like, it's very, very, like, dramatic and hard to overcome. The natural drama is very real, but at the same time, like, I think now Irish fans are a little bit more aware of there's an element of this that's a little bit showy, and then they're seeing guys constantly on Instagram and kind of going, I don't know if that's as real as people think it is, but ultimately you have a lot of very, very talented guys coming up, and even, like, if you go back and watch fights from, you know, 2012, 2013, and look at fights now, the level is so much higher, like, especially, you know, on the domestic scene, and I suppose Bellator is considered world level, like, but they've signed in so many Irish fighters, it's nearly domestic again, but, like, look at the quality of the guys coming up. There's a young lad on the undercard at Zell, and he's a 10-time world champion kickboxer. He's making his pro debut. I think it'll be the first fight at night. But, like, this guy's been training since he was 4 years old, basically.
Yeah.
Unbelievably talented, 10-time world champion, like, and, you know, that'll be a fight that 95% of the people in the audience watching are going to go, here's some twat making his pro debut.
Because he hasn't talked shit about his opponent, maybe. And, like, it's very interesting that you mentioned that it's pantomime until it's not pantomime. Like, you wonder if that is actually the price to pay, the crazy press conferences before certain UFC events, for example, that really that does become the distraction. And sure, it'll sell you a lot more pay-per-view tickets, but it actually, in the long run, perhaps damage the credibility of the sport in some people's eyes. I'm not saying it does overall.
Yeah. No, and, like, I understand why, because people tune into that and they get turned off by it. But it does ultimately attract a lot more people. If you look at the numbers, that sort of thing seems to and that's human nature for some reason.
Yeah.
I do find it kind of discouraging that, like, ultimately people can't see through that. You know, that people can't kind of have a little bit of a deeper look and go, well, actually, behind all this, there's two incredibly dedicated athletes, and they're just doing what they have to do to get the attention. And it's a bit of a pity, like, you're never going to read a good story about MMA in a broadsheet newspaper. Like, you know, it's not just, we're not seen as that type of sport, whereas actually, overall, this is young lads trying to have a better life for themselves. Like, there's a guy, Kieran Clark, who's also on the undercard. He's gone 1-0 now recently. But, like, since I've been in SPG, he was getting a bus down from Drogheda, you know, spending the whole day in the gym, going back up late at night, like sneaking on to Lewis, getting back up there, himself and his brother. And like the dedication of that young lad, and there was no end goal in sight, there was nothing there, and now suddenly he's making a career out of it. That story's never going to be covered. You know, and like that guy is an amateur, he had a couple of very tough losses. There's a lot to that, like, and there's a lot of really good, like, look at what's happening in Drogheda in general at the moment. Like, you know, it's not positive. And here's a really positive story out of that, but it's never going to be covered.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point, actually, that we have a list of fighters here that we perhaps don't...
No, and nobody cares. Yeah, this is the thing. They've been very much overlooked. And they're incredibly talented, incredibly dedicated, and it's sad.
The positive is that most people who have a ticket to sell out Bellator 240 are there for that very thing, to support fighters like you and plenty of your Irish colleagues going in there to fight on Saturday night. It is Bellator 240. It is Fleury. Thanks a million for popping in. Very best of luck Saturday.
I'm going to smash it, don't worry.